Nobody expects to be in this position. Nobody falls pregnant to then think that they need to go and look for support once their baby's here. It could happen to anybody. I'm Emma. I am married to Stephen and we have 2 children, Grace and Gibson. Grace is 5. She was born in 2017. Grace was induced at 38 weeks, just to being small, and she happened to be in distress while we were in labour, and during this time she had suffered lack of oxygen to the brain, and which resulted in her episode of having hypoxia, encephalopathy. So Grace was brain damaged at birth. That's a pretty scary time for any mum, especially a first time mum. So we were thrown into this unknown. We were always told the worst. Grace wouldn't make it, she would not survive. They were just waiting for her to die. It was horrific. She was the sickest baby there. That, yeah, it was only just a matter of days, so let's just go and get family in to see her sooner rather than later. You're always going to look for the hope in everything. You always hope that your one's going to be the one that pulls through. Your one's the one that's going to defy the odds. Your little girl's going to be the one that is going to make it. So I was always very hopeful that she would do all these things. So Grace did start improving, and then we moved out of the intensive care, and it was still like, well, she'll not leave. Like, there's been a lot of damage done. She'd been for MRIs by this point, so we knew the extent of her injuries was that she had spastic quad cerebral palsy. She'd never walk, she'd never talk. She would be socially unaware. Then eventually they'd asked if we wanted to go home. So I'm like, yeah. So we went home with Grace, then 2 days later we got our discharge note, and you walk into this room and there is like 20 people sitting at this table. And then there's me and Grace and Stephen. And it is the most terrifying thing because they're starting telling you, like, you need to start making plans of things that you want to do with Grace before she passes, and we can help you facilitate that. So anything that you've dreamed of, that you wished for, or you would like to do with Grace, write it down so that we can help you fulfill that. I've just taken her home. I'm ready for that. Grace is just my baby. By this point, she doesn't have an NG tube anymore. She is oral feeding. Now, these are things that we were told would never happen. So I'm like, she's feeding. Do you know what I mean? Okay, granted, she was constantly being sick, but she was still oral feeding, and we weren't having to feed her with a tube. And we just felt like we were just getting a lot of glimmers of hope, and she was becoming more alive and smiling, and like, you just felt like this is how it should have been from the get-go. But this was like 6, 7, 8 weeks down the line, and this is all these things that are just happening. Then we were told about Charlie House. How they explained it to me in the neonatal was, this is where Grace is going to die. And I didn't want anything to do with him, because you spend all your life wanting your baby, and you have her and something traumatic happens, and then now they're telling me that she's going to go this place to die and not be with us. So I was like, no, it's not happening. But they would come in every so often, and I'd be like, I don't even know why you're here, because I don't want you having my girl. And she was just a baby, and a baby's a baby. They still pee, they poop, they eat, they sleep. And it's not until they get a bit bigger that you notice any difference. So I did keep them at arm's length for a very long time. I just didn't understand why my Grace needed to go anywhere else bar just being with her mum and her daddy. Like, her first year, nobody got her. Like, Stephen would fight to get hold of her, and I'm like, no, because what happens if she dies? What happens if she dies and I'm not there? Like, what happens if she's not with me? So nobody's getting her. She's sick. She had a sling, and I practically wore that sling for the whole year. Grandparents very rarely got bogies. Stephen very rarely got bogies because I was just petrified that one day that was her and I wouldn't have her. She wouldn't be here. So going to other things that weren't at home, nah, she just wasn't going to them. I don't care. No, she was going to stay with her mama for as long as she needed to be. As Grace got bigger, I don't want her missing out on anything. I want her to do anything and everything. So I met with Lee from Charlie House, and we had a fabulous chat. They put to ease everything that I had been keeping inside me for the past 2 and a bit years. Like, that's what I had in my brain, is that if Grace goes to Charlie House, this is where she's going to die. And that is horrific to think that that's what they're saying, because that's far, 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 far from the truth. And it's building memories. It's about giving Grace the best that we can do, about giving her opportunities that she wouldn't have normally. It's socialising with other families and meeting other parents and children that are in the same situation as you, because that is something I didn't have for a very long time. Also Gibson to come along, and he's involved because he is very much part of Grace's life every single day, and the fact that he gets to come along and participate, and he's got support and guidance and friends growing up with other children in the same situation as Grace, that this is what it's about. It's all about creating a nice bond around the whole family, and it isn't just isolated just to Grace, because Grace affects all of our lives and what we can and can't do. There are people every day having to face what I'm dealing with and not knowing where to turn and not knowing where to look and not knowing. That's the thing, not knowing that there's support out there in Charlie House that will help these families. We're all in the same boat. We all want the same thing for our babies, and we get that with Charlie House. Charlie House allow us all to give our babies the best experiences, the best support. They're there. You can call them, I need help with this. They will find it for you. If you're struggling about what's going on, because our babies, all our lives go up and down all the time, that they are there for you. They're there for the husbands, the grandmas, the grandas, the brothers, the sisters, everything like that. They're there to support you, and they give it freely, and they want to make it easy for you, and it isn't scary. And it is about the making the memories, having a community, having a bond. Like, I've got bonds with some of these women that will do us for the rest of our life now, and it's not something that you wouldn't have found these women on your everyday life. It only because of this life that we've all been thrusted into that we have these bonds, and this was all made possible through Charlie House, because we wouldn't have met otherwise. I couldn't imagine my life now not having Charlie House in it, because it would be very boring. Do you know, it would be very dull, and we get so much out of it. We have done amazing activities with Charlie House, and what is even more nice about it is that these are free to us as a family, because there are some things that you can't just go out and try willy-nilly, and Grace might only like 5-10 minutes of it. Grace and Gibson and myself have all benefited from activities. These are things that you want as a parent. You want your child to be happy and you want your child to experience these things. But you can't always make them happen. The families in the northeast of Scotland that use Charlie House, we are so very lucky. And everybody that needs Charlie House needs to know about Charlie House. Our family highly benefits from it, and we would be lost without the support and love that we get from Charlie House.